Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Saturday, September 27th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 633 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And today we are previewing the New York Jets Week 4 matchup, an AFC divisional rivalry on Monday Night Football, as the New York Jets will head back to Florida for the second straight week on the road to face off against the Miami Dolphins. The battle between two desperate 0-3 teams looking to get their first win of the season on primetime. Mike McDaniel potentially coaching for his job. Aaron Glenn still searching for his first win as head coach of the New York Jets. So a lot to break down in today's episode, as we always do. We'll give you the New York Jets roadmap to victory. What will it take for the New York Jets to snap this three-game losing streak, to finally get in the win column, and finally give us something positive to talk about walking away with a win here in week number 4. Offense and defensive keys. We'll take a look at X factors on both sides of the football, and of course our matchups to watch with my prediction coming at the end. We'll start, as we always do, with just some general thoughts on this game. Injury report at the time of this recording here has not officially been released, with the Monday night game will be released later on Saturday. So nothing major, though, from an injury perspective. The biggest news is Justin Fields practice on Thursday, practiced on Friday, should be good to go on Monday night, clearing the concussion protocol. 7:15 p.m. Eastern start, ESPN. 0-3 Jets, 0-3 Dolphins. 2.5-point home favorites the Dolphins are. So the New York Jets are the road underdogs in this one. The over-under for this game is set at 44.5. ESPN Analytics matchup predictor is giving the Dolphins a 54.8% chance of winning, and the New York Jets a 44.9% chance of winning. And when you look at this game from the two teams' perspectives, two 0-3 teams, two desperate teams, and two teams that are kind of in slightly different spots despite 0-3, right? You have a Dolphins, or rather you have a Jets team. We'll start with the Jets angle. Aaron Glenn still searching for his first win, has faced a lot of criticism in the media, has faced a lot of criticism through these first 3 games with some of the things that we've seen from this Jets team. Still searching for his first win, gets an opportunity here on prime time. A Jets team that'll get Justin Fields back, hoping to rekindle offensively what this team showed in week number 1. Rekindle that here in week number 4, because you have not seen that the last 2 games. Buffalo, they were a non-existent. They were sleepwalking. And in last week, it took them 3 quarters to wake up. And then from the Dolphins' perspective, you have a team that, with this core group of players, with this coaching staff, it feels like is on their last stand. There is a really good chance that if the Dolphins lose this game, Mike McDaniel might not have a job by the end of Tuesday. That's kind of where they are at. So 2 teams with pressure on them to pick up a win here, not embarrass themselves on primetime, not fall to a dreadful 0-4 record that essentially completely tanks your season and takes you out of any possibility of remaining competitive through the rest of the year. But from the Dolphins standpoint, it's this core group of players. It feels like they've checked out. yes, they were competitive against Buffalo, but a team that had to have a team meeting after week one. It feels like it's Mike McDaniel's last stand. And from the Jets, no, Aaron Glenn's not going to be fired after this game, but you can really calm some of the pressure, some of the negativity that has been put forth on this team, rightfully so, 3 weeks into this Aaron Glenn tenure, with a win on Monday night, falling to 0-4, losing 2 divisional games, losing on prime time to a Dolphins team that all year long has been one of the laughing stocks of the NFL. Jets have been right there with them, but the Dolphins, so many issues. You can't go out there in this game if you're Aaron Glenn and the Jets and not even show up. You've got to show up. You've got to play well early. You've got to make this a game. And you've got to find a way, if you want to make anything of this season moving forward, to pick up a win. Falling to 0-4, it's essentially a death sentence on this season. That's the way to put it. So that's kind of where you look at these two teams heading into this one. Two struggling teams, prime time, America, get ready. You're watching a combined 0-6 matchup here with the Jets and Dolphins on Monday Night Football. So apologies in advance to everybody that hasn't watched 3 games of Jets football yet, although you got your high dose of Jets football in prime time the last 2 years. That obviously didn't well, so apologies to everybody out there that the Jets are back on primetime, just what everybody wants to see. But those are just some of my opening thoughts entering this one. 2 teams with a lot of pressure on them to get a win, 2 coaches with a lot of pressure on them to get a win for 2 different reasons. McDaniel at this point trying to save his job, and Glenn just trying to pick up his first win and show some sense of progress, because let's be honest, 3 weeks in, this team's gotten progressively worse in a lot of areas in 3 games. And that's the opposite of what you want to see in a new coach, because ideally you see growth throughout the year, not regression. And in a lot of areas, you've seen regression from where this team was week number 1, which, by the way, feels like ages ago, to where they are now entering this week 4 primetime matchup. So with that being said, now let's get into what the New York Jets need to do in this one to pick up their first win of the season and get on the board and build some positive momentum into a short week against the Dallas Cowboys returning home in week number 5. As we always do, we'll start with the offensive keys to the game here. Number 1, this is obvious. Justin Fields back as the starting quarterback, expected after missing last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a concussion. You've got to establish the run game. That is key number 1. And you talk about this Jets team regressing. You talk about these certain areas that we've seen this Jets team just be terrible in over these last 2 games against Tampa and against Buffalo in week number 2. One of the biggest areas that you've seen regress, one of the biggest areas that has been a non-factor for this Jets team is the run game, right? You go out there against Pittsburgh as a team, you rush on for 182 carries, or 182 yards rather, on 39 carries, 4.7 yards per carry, and 3 touchdowns. Since that point, you have followed it up with 2 clunkers. The Jets against Buffalo, 21 carries, 100 yards, and they followed it up with 23 carries for 99 yards last week against Tampa. So they went from having 39 carries in one game, dominating on the ground, controlling the time of possession against Pittsburgh right from the start, right from the opening snap, where Breece Hall was able to break free and have a really big game, to the last 2 weeks combined, having just 44 carries for 199 yards, 4.5 yards per carry. And you have to put into note, too, a couple things about these last 2 games. While you might look at the Jets from a box score perspective these last 2 games and say, well, they rushed for 100 yards and they rushed for 99 yards and they rushed for comfortably over 4 yards per carry, there has been a couple big runs that have stretched that number. You go back to the Buffalo game, if you remove that Justin Fields 27-yard run right before halftime, the team had just 20 carries for 73 yards, which is well below 4 yards per carry. That's disgusting. That's unacceptable for an offense that is built on its run game. You go to the Bucs game, you remove the Tyrod 14-yard scramble late, and in the one good Breece Hall run that he had all day, they had just 21 carries for 68 yards and 3.2 yards per carry as a team. My point to all of this being, this is a New York Jets team that, sure, there's been about 3 big runs that have made the numbers look a little less worse than they've been. Either way, they still are ugly. But you take away those things, they've been terrible in the run game. Part of that has been they've fallen down early in games, forcing them to pass. It's tough to set up the run. I think there's got to be the element of passing and having some success through the air to also set up the run, because teams have got 2 games of film now. Teams have seen Tampa and Buffalo have success against them in stopping the run. You've got to be able to mix it up a little bit. You've got to be able to have some short, quick passes, some completions to keep the defense honest. Justin Fields, going back to that Buffalo game, right, was missing Garrett Wilson wide open, had about 4 to 5 misfires. You can't have this in this game. You've got to be able to keep the defense honest from just stacking the box and expecting to run. So a lot of it does start, too, with the success that the Jets need to have through the air, ultimately leads to, hopefully, the run game being established. But it's been terrible. It's been non-existent. And the biggest concern is that Pittsburgh game, 4 to 5 to 6 yard carries. Like I mentioned, you've had a few big runs, but that's been it. This is a team that's built on wearing you down. First down run, 4 to 5 yards. Second down run, another 3 to 4. Now you look up, it's 3rd and 1, it's 3rd and 2. That's a prime spot to be in. With the run game being as bad as it's been the last 2 weeks, it's been a lot of run, pass. It's been a lot of run on first down for a yard, run on second down for 2 yards. Now it's 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. You're looking at 3rd and long. This is an offense that's not built for 3rd and long. They're not built to have success on 3rd and long situations. And that's why I said you have to mix in some of the pass to help the run. Early on in this game, if you're just run, pass, you're never going to get anywhere because it hasn't worked the last 2 weeks. And you look at Breece as well. Just the team as a whole has been terrible. But Breece as well. You go back to that first game, 19 carries for 107 yards, 5.6 yards per carry. Excellent performance in week number 1. The last 2 weeks, he's been terrible. Just 19 carries over the last 2 games after having 19 in one game against Pittsburgh for 50 yards. He has averaged under 3 yards a carry in the last 2 games. And of course, that has already led to all of the trade rumors spiking back up. And if the Jets are out of it, which in likelihood they will be by the deadline, they will deal him. That's all popped up again with these struggles the last 2 weeks. So you throw that into the equation. There's no reason, though, for Monday night, with Justin Fields back in the mix, read options, a threat again, Fields' legs, taking some of the attention off of these running backs because teams have to fear Fields' legs a lot more than Tyrod's. And frankly, this is a Dolphins defense that's not any good, but specifically very, very bad against the run. They are the 28th ranked rush defense in football, allowing 145 yards per game on the ground. They've gotten destroyed in the run game. The Jets team with Fields back, his legs should be a big role in this game. Breece Hall needs to have a big role in this game. Braylon Allen needs to have a big role in this game. Jets have to establish the run. They have to establish the run early and really just wear down a Miami defense. Have those long drives, win the battle, win the time of possession battle, dominate in the trenches, do what this team's identity is supposed to be, and that's run the football down your throat. So that's offensive key number 1. Moving on now to the second offensive key. This is kind of just a general pass game statement, but it's taking chances and having success against this Dolphins secondary. And that might sound obvious. Obviously, every week you want to have success against the opposing team's secondary. But specifically this week, and I've said many times about the taking chances, the Jets' longest pass play of this year was the 33-yard touchdown to Garrett Wilson. Since that point, they have not had a play go longer than that. They have not had a 40 or a 50-yard monster, big, deep, vertical play. That was it. It was the 33-yarder to Garrett Wilson in game number 1, and since that point, there's been none of that. The next closest would be 20 yards last week from Tyrod Taylor. So the Jets, in terms of stretching the field, taking chances, vertically having success, it hasn't been there. And I look at this being a game, right? You establish the run, all that stuff, that's important. But from a pass game standpoint, because you're going to have to pass, you're going to have success in the pass game. That's a lot of it's going to dictate, a lot of what's this run game is going to do is going to dictate if Fields can hit open receivers and have success through the air and just be competent and get the ball out timely, right? That keeps the defense guessing. More importantly, though, this is a Dolphins secondary that is abysmal. You look at the Jets and the secondary and the issues, and believe me, we'll get into that when we get to the defensive side of the football here in a little bit. They've got their major issues. Dolphins are right there with them in terms of two teams that have terrible defenses. Just talked about how the Dolphins were ranked as the 28th run defense in football. Well, they're also in the 20s when you look at stopping the pass. They're the 21st ranked pass defense in football, allowing 225.3 yards per game. This is a game, to me, you've got to take chances, stretch the field. I've said it so many times, but Arian Smith, vertical route, send him deep. First play of the game, take a chance. Kind of light a fire a bit under Miami. Surprise them a bit, right? Force them to have to worry about the vertical plays. Force them to have to worry about pass plays over the top that can really gash this defense and create big explosive plays. Force them to worry about that. That keeps them guessing. That adds another element to the Jets trying to have success on offense. And you just look at these Dolphins corners and the struggles that they've had. This is a game where Garrett Wilson should have a big game. And can somebody, minus Garrett Wilson, emerge? Can you get Mason Taylor involved? We'll actually get to him here in a little bit because I do think there is an interesting opportunity in this game for Mason Taylor to play well. And we'll talk about that when I get to some X factors and matchups to watch. But can this be a game where Arian Smith, who hasn't been deployed yet in terms of running downfield and trying to beat this team over the top with his speed, do some of that on Monday night? You look at these Dolphins corners, just read you some numbers here. Rasul Douglas, 3 games in, their best corner by far. 70.7 coverage grade, 5 receptions, 66 yards. However, some of these other corners that the Dolphins roll out there, and this has been known going into the year, the cornerback room and the tight end room for the Miami Dolphins are 2 of some of the weakest position groups in the NFL. Minus Rasul Douglas, let's look at Jack Jones, 3 games played. 45.8 coverage grade, 6 receptions allowed, 72 yards and a touchdown. Storm Duck, 40.7 coverage grade, 4 receptions, 72 yards, touchdowns. Jason Marshall Jr., 28.4 coverage grade, 7 receptions, 88 yards, touchdown. Cornell Armstrong as well, 39.8 coverage grade, a reception, 15 yards, and a touchdown last week against Buffalo. Only target, only catch against him was a TD. This is a Dolphins secondary that is terrible. And a Jets receiving core that hasn't been very good either. But you look at Garrett Wilson, have a big game. He's had success in the past against Miami. I talked about Arian Smith. Can he provide anything in this game? And not even just those 2 guys, but Breece Hall as well being deployed. Let's see some 2 running back sets. Breece Hall and some swing routes and things like that, where you can get these running backs, get these other playmakers involved. I mentioned Mason Taylor as well. Utilize him a bit more in this game. So, second key here, taking chances against what is a just atrocious Dolphins secondary. And I want to move on now to the final defensive key. And this kind of, I guess, ties into two different things here. Number one, kind of ties into two different things. The third down stuff I can kind of tie in with both offense, defense. I think it's important in this game. But to me, it's starting fast for the Jets. And it's funny when you look at this Jets team because a lot of times Tanner Engstrange sort of mentioned it on Friday when talking about this offense and this notion around starting slow. A lot of people look at this Jets offense and say, well, they haven't started that slow. The first game against Pittsburgh, they didn't punt, in the first half. They went down and got points early on. Even last week against Tampa, they went down and got points. So in two of their first three games, they went down and got points on their first drive. To me, though, in this game against Miami, I need to see more. And that's why I put the third key here as starting fast. The Jets starts this season have kind of been overblown, taken out of context by first drive, they've gone down and kicked field goals in two of the three games. And Pittsburgh, they had an excellent first half as a whole. But in general, when you look at the Jets through three games, their first halves have been terrible. That's really what I mean by starting fast. I'm not talking about first drive, more definitely first drive in general. Go out there and instead of kicking a field goal, go down there and score. I mean, last week against Tampa, this was a team that was moving the football. They had a good methodical offensive drive going. They elected to receive. Arian Smith had the terrible illegal formation penalty on 2nd and 1, which is just inexcusable. And they have to settle for a field goal. That killed the drive. I didn't like the third down play to Garrett Wilson either. So you went from moving the football, then penalty, bad pass, you're kicking a field goal. So there is also context to that as well. But when you look at the Jets and their first halves this season, it's been bad, really bad, especially the last two games. Pittsburgh, they were leading into halftime 19-17. But then you look at these last two games, they've been outscored in the first half against Buffalo and Tampa, 40-9. They went into the first half against Buffalo down 20-3. And then against Tampa, they were down 20-6. And that was, of course, due to the backbreaking Tyrod pick six to Jamel Dean when they were trying to get points before halftime. So to me, I look at starting fast. Not only it's going down your first drive and instead of kicking field goal, going down and scoring a touchdown, but let's go into halftime with a lead. Go into halftime with a 2-score lead, a 13-3 lead, a 17-7 lead. Put up some points, have consistent drives, get back to more of what you were doing in the Pittsburgh game here on the road. There is nothing better for this Jets team, for any team on the road in primetime, divisional game, than to go out there and go into halftime with a big lead. Go out there first drive and make a legitimate statement. I'm not talking about going down and kicking a field goal and getting three just so then Dolphins can go down and score and take the lead. No, go down there, have a 9-10 play drive where you're running the football and you punch it in. And they've got a good opportunity to do it in this game because you look at the Dolphins, they've had their own fair share of slow starts. Now, the Jets in the first halves, by the way, have been outscored 57-28. Which on average, they've trailed by 29 points total, which is about 4 scores. On average, the Jets have gone into halftime down by about 10. So 2 scores on average the Jets trailed in 3 games this year when you look at going into halftime. Unacceptable. Miami's had their own issues, though. First game, they were down 20-0. Second game, 15-14. Last week, they were actually tied. So in total, they've been outscored 49-28, which is 21 points or 3 scores. And on average, they go down in games by about 7. So the Jets here, a team that struggled in first halves this season, on average have went into halftime down 10, are facing a Miami team that has on average gone into halftime this year down a touchdown. So go out there, take advantage against a bad Dolphins defense, start fast, and have success early in this game. Go into halftime with a sizable lead and come out in the second half and close the door and pick up your first win. So those are my 3 offensive keys. establish the run, take chances against the Dolphins secondary, and start fast. Moving on to the defensive side of the football, it's getting pressure on Tua. That's number one. And this can also kind of tie into my second key, which we'll get to here, or my third key here in a little bit. But get pressure on Tua. When you look at Tua this season, 62 of 89, that's 69.7% completion percentage, 575 yards, 6.5 yards per completion, 5 touchdowns, or 6.5 yards per attempt, rather. 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 87.1 passer rating, a 35.8 QBR. You look at some of the rankings for Tua, 23rd in yards, tied for 7th in touchdowns. He has tied for the most interceptions right now in football. 87.1 passer rating is 19th, and his 35.8 QBR is 29th, which is the worst in football, tied with Russell Wilson just got benched, Cam Ward, a rookie, and J.J. McCarthy, who is now hurt. So not exactly good company to be in if you're Tua and this Dolphins offense. Tua is exactly what he's been his entire career, as we all know. Has these stretches of good play, but there's always that back-breaking turnover. You saw it last week against Buffalo. He's thrown an interception in every game. I'll talk more about that a little bit later on when I talk about this Jets defense getting turnovers and maybe actually forcing one for once in this game, because they haven't done that all year long. But getting pressure on Tua is big in this one. The Jets last week, and it looks like they'll be without Jermaine Johnson again, which is a big blow, which means more Michael Clemens, which nobody watching this game across the country needs to see. Ridiculous that Michael Clemens continues to play for this team. Ridiculous that Michael Clemens is even in the NFL still. But that's besides the point. Last week, the Jets up against a bruised and battered Baker Mayfield and Buccaneers offensive line. Sure, they forced 7 holding penalties, but they only got home for 1 sack. Not nearly good enough against a struggling Buccaneers, or against a beat-up Buccaneers offensive line that was missing 3 of its 5 starters. I look at this game and say, this has got to be another opportunity, has got to be a game where the Jets get pressure on Tua. Tua this season has been sacked 8 times, which is tied for 7th in the NFL. So he's inside the top 10 for most sacked quarterbacks through 3 games this season. So another prime opportunity here for this Jets defense. With or without Jermaine Johnson, you've got to be able to get home. Will McDonald, Quinnen Williams, you've got to be able to get to Tua. And I think it's so important because when you look at Tua, he struggles throughout his career, but especially this season as well, with pressure in his face. This season alone, I mentioned the 8 sacks. He's been pressured on 32.7% of his dropbacks. And on those dropbacks, he has completed just 56% of his passes with a 33.2 overall offensive grade and a 32.5 pass grade. He has been terrible when pressured this season, and he's been pressured over 30% of his dropbacks. And when you compare the two, when he has a clean pocket versus when the pocket's collapsing, when he has a clean pocket, his completion percentage goes from 56 all the way up to 75. His offensive grade goes from 33.2 up to 65.1, and the pass grade from 32.5 to 68, and he's had a clean pocket 67.3% of the time. So getting pressure on Tua is pivotal, and you want to get turnovers, you want to force turnovers on Tua, get pressure on him. Force him to make those quick decisions when the pocket's collapsing, which results in mistakes, gives you those opportunities to take the ball away, which this Jets team has not been able to do at all this season. And when you look at this Jets defense, getting home to the quarterback outside of week number 1, it's been far and few between. They had the 4 sacks against Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. But in these last 2 games against Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield, just 1 sack in each of those games. So 66.6% of their sacks came in game number 1, 4 of the 6. And right now they're tied for 23rd in football. So this is an opportunity for a defense that hasn't gotten home enough to get home to a quarterback that's been sacked 7th most in the NFL through 3 games. Go out there and make it happen on Monday night. My second key of the game for the Jets on defense is slowing down Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and I'll even throw Devon Achane in the mix because it's really the 3 of them. I kind of just label them as the Dolphins speedsters, the Dolphins weapons. They've gotten nothing from the tight end. They've really gotten nothing at wide receiver minus Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Those are your 3 weapons. Those are the 3 guys to keep an eye on, specifically in the pass game. Because to be honest, Miami as a team has actually struggled on the ground. They're the 26th ranked rushing offense in football, averaging under 90 rush yards per game at 89.7. So it's been a slog for them on the ground. But through the air, when Tua's clicking and when this offense is at its best and when this offense is playing efficient and doing what they were doing for a good portion of the game against Buffalo before Tua gave it away late like he typically does, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Devon Achane are all guys to keep an eye on. And that's obvious, but it's specific. It's more of a focal point now than it usually is because of how bad this Jets secondary has been. And when you look at what Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Devon Achane have done this year, it's not anything that pops off the charts, but 3 guys that have had their fair share of success against the Jets and 3 players that, if this Jets secondary continues to play like it does, are more than capable of going out there on Monday and taking over this game, putting up 30-plus points. And we're sitting here on Monday night talking about another Jets loss where Brandon Stevens, Michael Carter look lost. Sauce Gardner doesn't look like the highest-paid cornerback in the NFL, which he hasn't in the last 2 games. That's why it's such an important factor in this one. Tyreek Hill, 15 receptions, 23 targets, 198 yards, and a touchdown this season. Jalen Waddle, 14 receptions, 17 targets, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Devon Achane, 18 receptions, 23 targets, 141 yards, and 2 touchdowns this season. So those 3 have combined for all of Tua's touchdowns. They've also combined for 70% of the team's receptions, 65% of the team's targets, and 78% of the team's yards. So just to show you how much that big 3 is a factor in this offense, they're the only ones. Tight end, nothing. Wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, running back 2, nothing. It's 2 receivers and Devon Achane. And you just look at this Jets secondary and how bad it's been. Really, really concerning again going into this one. Here we are, another week. And ultimately what I think is going to be the difference in this game is going to be most likely the Jets' inability to stop these playmakers. Let's take a look at some of the numbers here. Michael Carter, 7 receptions this season, 11 targets, 63.6 catch percentage, 94 yards, 13 yards per reception allowed. He's had a penalty. He's got a 44.5 coverage grade, 51.6 tackling grade. Michael Carter already has had 3 20 or more yard receptions allowed this season. He had just 3 in all of 2023. So he's going to blow by that mark. He's already tied it in just 3 games. Brandon Stevens, 11 receptions, 15 targets, 73% catch rate, 104 yards, 9.5 yards per reception, a penalty, a 52.7 coverage grade, and he's also been terrible against the run with a 53.8 run defense grade. Sauce, 6 receptions, 14 targets, 42.9% catch rate, so not as high as Michael Carter and Brandon Stevens, but 102 yards, 17 yards per completion, 3 penalties, the killer defensive pass interference on 3rd and 29, a 65.8 coverage grade, and a 64.5 run defense grade. So he's also been terrible against the run. Michael Carter, Brandon Stevens, and Sauce, the secondary's been the biggest disappointment of this team, specifically Michael Carter and Brandon Stevens. In a lot of areas, they've been the 2 worst cornerbacks in the NFL, legitimately. I mean, Michael Carter is the 2nd lowest graded slot corner in the NFL. And Brandon Stevens is right there with him when you look at outside corners. The Jets have 2 of some of the worst corners in football playing right now, facing off against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And Sauce these last 2 weeks hasn't been himself either. He's looked more like the Sauce we saw last year instead of week 1 where he looked like the Sauce in his first 2 seasons. Tackling's an issue, penalties, bad coverage, unacceptable. They've got to be better. They've got to step up. And I continue to throw a name out here. A.Z. Thomas. He came in for Sauce when Sauce left to get checked for concussion against Tampa. AZ came in, only played 6 snaps, but in those 6 snaps, was targeted twice, didn't allow a catch, and was the highest graded Jet with a 76.4 coverage grade. And his overall grade was the highest graded Jet of the week. I've said it many times. I would play him over Brandon Stevens. I don't think they'll do it. But could we see more of A.Z. Thomas on Monday? I'd throw him out there. And specifically on Jalen Waddle, he's had a ton of success against the Jets. It actually hasn't been Tyreek Hill. It's more so been Jalen Waddle, who's had the success against the Jets in his career. 7 games, 5-2 record, 45 receptions on 56 targets, 531 yards, 11.8 yards per reception, and a touchdown. On average, 6 receptions for about 75 yards. You round it up, about 76 per game. So he is almost an 6 reception, 80-yard per game player against the Jets. So he certainly has his fair share of success. Tyreek Hill, 30 receptions, 290 yards, 2 touchdowns in 5 games against the Jets, 6 receptions, 58 yards. So the Jets have actually 5 games with Tyreek Hill in a Dolphins uniform, not counting his Kansas City Chiefs days, have actually kept Tyreek Hill more in check than they have Jalen Waddle. And you look tomorrow, or rather Monday, for Jalen Waddle to have a big game against this secondary, unless if they come around and play better, and they have to. My final defensive key here is kind of a mix, but it's forcing turnovers and getting off the field on 3rd down. I mentioned earlier the 2 turnovers, the 4 interceptions, tied for most in the NFL. Known for turning the football over in big spots as well. You saw it on the Thursday night game, as I mentioned a couple times already in today's preview pod. Playing well all game, late in the game, had that back-breaking turnover, and Miami loses it. It's funny. These are 2 teams that have yet to force a turnover. We really are going to get some type of game on Monday. We really are. You're getting 2 teams that have yet to force a turnover, 2 teams that are 0-3, 2 teams that are terrible on defense, 2 teams that have not had success on offense, 2 coaches that have got some pressure on them, a lot of pressure. Glenn's got to start winning, and McDaniel is coaching for his job essentially week to week right now. So really some type of game we got for America on Monday watching these 2 teams. The Jets' turnover differential this season is -4. Dolphins is -5, which is actually tied for the worst. Jets are tied for second worst. Only 3 teams in the NFL that have yet to force a turnover. Jets, Dolphins, and the Commanders. This is, to me, a game where you've got to force a turnover. You've got to pick off Tua, pressure him, force him into a bad throw, catch the football. You can't win games consistently. You can't, as a defense, have success without forcing turnovers. You've got to be able to force turnovers, especially this type of defense where you're beat up, you're without Quincy Williams, you already have a secondary that struggled, your linebackers have already struggled, you're also without Marcelino McCurry-Ball, so you're essentially down to your 4th linebacker here, which is Kiko Maui-No, which we'll get to here more in a little bit. You've got to find a way to force turnovers. And I'll also throw this out here as well. Getting off the field on 3rd down, the Dolphins this year have actually converted the highest rate on 3rd down in the NFL, which sounds really, really wrong because 0-3 team converting at the highest clip in the NFL on 3rd down on offense doesn't seem right, but it's true. They're converting on 3rd down at a 54.2% clip, which is first. The Jets this season are holding opponents to a 35.1% conversion rate, which is tied for 9th. So they are top 10. I do think, though, the Jets' defense on third down, the numbers don't tell the whole story. They have given up a lot of third and longs. They have had a lot of backbreaking penalties on third downs. So while the opposing third down rate is inside the top 10, when they give up third downs, it's in terrible spots. It's your 3rd and 9s, your 3rd and 10s, your 3rd and 29, where all you have to do is keep the play in front of you, don't do anything stupid, and you take a pass interference. Those type of third down conversions, Jets can't let happen on Monday. And I mentioned earlier, Jets offense as well, converting on third down. You're looking at 2 of the worst in their category. The Dolphins this year are holding opponents. As much as they've been good converting third downs, they're also very good at letting the opposing teams convert third downs. This year, the Dolphins are allowing opponents to convert at a 52.6% clip, which is 31st in the NFL, second worst. And the Jets are converting at just a 27.7% clip, which is 30th. So third worst. So you're looking at one of the worst converting third down offenses against one of the worst third down defenses. Something's got to give, right? Unstoppable force meets unmovable object. Something's got to give there. So a couple third down notes to tie in here as well. Now let's move on to X Factors, matchup to watch, and my prediction, as always, at the end. Some offensive X Factors. We talked about it. Breece Hall, the big one. Second week in a row, but I'm throwing Tanner Engstrand out there. You've got to adjust. You've got to show some sign of adjustments. Week number 1 was great. You looked good. You haven't been able to adjust since. Defenses have adjusted on this Jets defense or offense. The Jets haven't been able to adjust to the defenses. You've got to be able to go out there in this game, start fast, have a good set of scripted plays. That all falls on the shoulders of Tanner Engstrand. And I'll throw another one out here. I hinted his name earlier, but Mason Taylor. Not only is he back in Miami, and of course, you know, his dad and the Miami ties, growing up, all that stuff. This is a Dolphins team that I talked about these struggles in the secondary, but also a Dolphins team that has struggled specifically against tight ends. You look at their 3 games so far, they allowed 8 catches for 96 yards against the Colts tight ends, 4 catches for 47 yards against the Patriots, and 6 catches, 71 yards, and 2 touchdowns against the Bills. So in total, they have allowed 18 catches, 2 touchdowns, and 214 yards against tight ends in 3 games. That's on average about 6 catches for 71 yards, which is a lot. So they've actually struggled against tight ends. Mason Taylor's been pretty much a non-factor. I know he had 4 catches last week, but it was for 18 yards. It was not a very significant sum of yards on those catches. So I look for him in this game to be a little bit much more of a factor than he's been, have a bigger game, go out there, have some success against a Dolphins defense that has had some vulnerability against tight ends in the first 3 games. One of those was a rookie in Tyler Warren. They also let Jackson Hall score. So they've had their fair share of issues there. From the Jets defensive X factor, it's the secondary and the linebackers. Kiko Maui Noah. What does he look like? I have really no faith. He's a rookie, 5th round pick, hasn't looked great in the little playing time he's got. You know, you have Mark Robinson they picked up. We've talked about, you know, some of the different names that they've added. Of course, you know, it's a very makeshift offensive or deep or linebacker room right now, kind of scotch taped together. Not necessarily a good spot to be in when your defense has already struggled. Now you're down your star linebacker. Really, really rough. So at those 2 positions, you've got to come to play. Some matchups to watch. Mention it. Mason Taylor against the Dolphins defense. Breece against this Dolphins run defense. Garrett Wilson, look for him to be licking his chops in this one against a struggling Dolphins secondary. Some matchups to watch on defense. It's the biggest one. It's containing the speedsters. It's Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane in the pass game against this Jets secondary. Sauce is one of the biggest factors and X factors in this one. I could throw him in there as well. Like if he can hold his own and play like he did against Pittsburgh and play like the guy that we've seen him play like before in all pro level, it takes a lot of the stress. It takes a lot of the potential failures of this Jets defense away. If he can lock up a Waddle, lock up a Tyreek Hill, assuming he's traveling there with the number one, that's huge. And can Michael Carter show you any life? I have no faith at this point in Brandon Stephens. He's just no good. But there is party with Michael Carter. Like, can he go out there and have just a little bit of a like? There's no way he's this bad. I don't think he's 2023 form. I don't think he'll be that, and I don't think he'll be here next season. But can he be in the middle? Stephens is who he is. He's not going to get any better. But there is still part of me that thinks Michael Carter can be a little bit better, right? It feels like. So we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just me trying to be optimistic and hope that they don't get shredded. And then it's the linebackers. Sherwood hasn't been good, and you're down now Quincy Williams. So with all that being said, I don't think the Jets win this. I hope I'm wrong. I just have way too many. I have no faith in this defense. That's really the simplest way to put it. Until this defense goes out there and puts together a good game, and I know this is also a Dolphins defense that has allowed 30 points in all 3 games, but until this defense goes out there and shows me for a week or two, for a couple of weeks, that they can hold their own, get stops, get some big stops, slow down, some of these weapons on these offenses, this secondary that shows improvement, AZ Thomas maybe getting whatever it is. Until they do that, I don't have faith in the Jets winning these games. So I'm going to go Dolphins 27-24. I hope I'm wrong. I do think there is a very real possibility. Like, I'm much more confident going into this game than I was last week. I will say that. I was not confident at all going into Tampa. Even with them being beat up, Tampa is just by far a better team. Miami's 0-3. And they're a team with a coach on the hot seat. They're a team that locker room that is pretty much in shambles. No other way to put it. It's a bad, bad spot, that locker room. Go out there and find a way to win. Get to 1-3. Pick up some positive momentum on a short week going into Dallas. You move to 0-4 and you lose in embarrassing fashion on primetime. It's going to really start to get late early for Aaron Glenn. It is. I know it's only year 1, but this is a big one for him. Prime time, you're 0-3 against a Dolphins team that's also reeling. You can't go out there and embarrass yourselves. You can't go out there all week and say you're not the same old Jets and then have a same old Jets type of performance on prime time, which there's been a lot of those. And, of course, the history is there with Miami and those type of performances. So go out there and find a way to win. I don't think it happens. I hope I'm wrong. Miami 27-24. I do think we're going to get some points in this one. I do. I think the Jets offense will be better. Not so much the fact that Fields is back. I just think a lot of it has to do with this Dolphins defense is very, very bad as well. In some areas, they've actually been worse than the Jets defense. So I think the Jets are going to score. They're going to get some points. Fields is going to have to make some plays. They're going to run the ball well, I do think. It comes down to this defense, and I just don't trust them. So let me know what you think in the comments section down below. What are your thoughts on the Jets heading into this matchup? What is your prediction? What is your keys to the game? Let me know what you think down below, your thoughts on this matchup heading into it. Appreciate you all as always. As always, we will be back recapping this one. Stay tuned. A lot more content coming your way. Until next time, JETS, 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 Jets.